In Los Angeles, a group of police officers are engaged in a heavy shootout with 4 robbers who are in the middle of a bank heist in Lincoln Heights. 2 of the robbers remain inside, watching over the hostages, while the other 2 are outside, firing at the cops using automatic weapons and wearing full body armor. This gives them a major advantage over the police, who are armed only with standard-issue pistols. Fortunately, a SWAT team soon arrives on the scene. Officers Jim and Brian, along with 2 other team members, rappel down from a helicopter onto the roof of the bank. They break into the building from above, tunneling down into the storage room. From there, they use a special camera to safely scan the path to the lobby. Meanwhile, a few SWAT snipers take up positions on a rooftop across the street, and a 3rd SWAT team approaches the bank from the ground level. At that moment, one of the robbers outside attempts to flee using a getaway car. However, a sniper takes him out with a single shot. The remaining robber outside continues exchanging fire with police, but the SWAT ground team soon reaches him and manages to bring him down as well. Inside the bank, the 2 remaining robbers begin to panic. The SWAT team sends in a secure phone so that a negotiator can communicate with the suspects and try to work out the release of the hostages. While the negotiator speaks with the robbers, Lieutenant Velasquez contacts the SWAT team inside the bank and tells them to hold position. Brian ignores the order, drops down into the storeroom, and forces Jim to follow him. Brian then sneaks into a position at the back of the lobby to line up a shot on the robbers. Velasquez continues trying to reach Brian, but all of his calls go unanswered. One of the robbers, growing increasingly agitated, grabs a woman and threatens to shoot her. In response, Brian fires his weapon, shooting the robber through the woman's shoulder. While he successfully kills the robber, he also injures the hostage. Jim steps in and takes out the final robber, ending the standoff. Afterward, Jim checks on the injured woman and calls for an ambulance. Brian wonders aloud whether she'll be okay, but Jim snaps at him, furious about what Brian did. Later, back at the precinct, Captain Fuller is livid with both Jim and Brian for ignoring direct orders, especially since the wounded woman now plans to sue them for negligence. Fuller fires both of them from the SWAT division. However, Velasquez intervenes and asks Fuller to at least let them remain on the team in some capacity, so they might earn a chance to return to active duty. Fuller agrees, but demotes them to cage duty, a menial job involving cleaning and distributing weapons and gear for other officers. Brian feels insulted and lashes out at Fuller, which only makes things worse. He storms off, furious. When Jim hesitates, Fuller offers him a chance to return to the team immediately, if he's willing to report Brian for being reckless during the operation. Meanwhile, Brian decides he's had enough and starts packing his things to leave. Jim then reveals that he actually agrees with Fuller, that Brian was reckless. The 2 get into an argument as Brian prepares to quit, while Jim refuses to do the same. Brian leaves in a fury, convinced Jim has betrayed him, and smashes his forehead against the locker room mirror before storming out. 6 months later, Jim still trains hard on his own time. Yet on duty, he's stuck inside the gun cage, handing out firearms and gear to other officers. One afternoon, Sergeant Hondo shows up at the precinct and asks Jim to service his personally customized M4 carbine. Jim examines the rifle's upgrades and can't help admiring the work. Afterward, Hondo meets with Lieutenant Velasquez. A series of scathing newspaper articles about the LAPD has pushed the chief to order sweeping reforms, and Velasquez wants Hondo to stand up a brand new SWAT unit under his command. He offers 2 reliable veterans from his own squad, TJ and Michael. Hondo accepts them and says he'll choose 3 more operators from the personnel files, though Captain Fuller will have final approval. When Jim finishes tuning Hondo's weapon and heads home, he finds his girlfriend packing to move out. She says their relationship has deteriorated and that Jim hasn't been the same since losing his spot on SWAT. She tries for a farewell kiss, but Jim turns away and lets her go. The next morning back in the cage, Jim shows his partner an invention he's been tinkering with during slow shifts. An oversized hook attached to a heavy chain designed to rip down walls or barricades and end sieges. He calls it the key to the city and hopes to patent it. Hondo walks in, hears the pitch, and likes the idea. He also inspects his rifle and compliments the improvements Jim installed. Later, Hondo takes several officers to the firing range for practice. TJ outshoots Hondo, prompting Hondo to wager $200 that Jim can beat TJ in a head-to-head challenge. TJ agrees, they square off, and Jim wins, astonishing everyone except Hondo. Meanwhile, French gangster Alex arrives in Los Angeles. Security nearly confiscates his knife, but he persuades them it's a family heirloom and keeps it. Met by his crew, Alex receives a fake passport for later use, then heads to a neighborhood restaurant to surprise his uncle for a birthday meal. The visit is a ruse. Alex knows the uncle has been skimming family funds. After they eat, Alex swiftly stabs him to death with the same knife. Driving away alone, Alex is pulled over for a broken taillight. Because the vehicle is registered to the uncle, now the subject of an outstanding warrant, police detain Alex for identity verification and questioning. Alex tries to bribe the officers in an attempt to get out of the situation, but it doesn't work, and he ends up in a holding cell. Meanwhile, Hondo recruits Jim to drive him around for the day as they search for new SWAT candidates. Their first stop is Officer Deke, who they find in the middle of a foot chase with a suspect. As Deke and the suspect race through the streets, Hondo and Jim decide to join the pursuit. After several blocks of running, they manage to help bring the suspect down. Deke is initially irritated by their interference, upset that they didn't let him finish the chase on his own. However, his frustration fades when Hondo offers him a spot on the new team. Next, they check out another candidate, but Hondo quickly loses interest after meeting him. The officer makes a bad first impression by being overly polite, vegetarian, and too much of a rule follower. Qualities Hondo thinks won't cut it in his unit. They then head to evaluate a Metro officer named Chris, who has repeatedly qualified for SWAT, but keeps getting rejected due to multiple misconduct complaints filed by suspects with internal affairs. They hear Chris is currently at the local ER, so Hondo and Jim stop by. There, they meet Chris's partner, who's guarding a suspect with a badly bruised face, injuries that clearly came from Chris. As Hondo searches for the officer, he's surprised to find that Chris is actually a woman, short for Christina. That realization makes Hondo suspect that Fuller may have used the complaints as a cover to keep her off the SWAT team because of her gender. Chris confirms that most of the allegations came from violent male suspects who couldn't handle being overpowered by a woman. Hondo immediately takes a liking to her and offers her a spot on the team. When they return to headquarters, Jim asks Hondo if he's going to keep dragging things out or finally explain why he brought him along on the recruitment trip. Hondo asks Jim if he wants to be part of the team. Jim hesitates, knowing Fuller will disapprove. Hondo then asks if Jim was the one who ratted out Brian. When Jim says no, Hondo gives him the final spot on the team. Later, during a meeting to finalize the new SWAT roster, Fuller immediately rejects both Chris and Jim, just as expected. But Hondo stands his ground. Fuller then proposes a compromise. He'll approve the team. But if they fail the SWAT preliminary trials, Chris goes back to her routine patrol, and both Jim and Hondo are off the force. Hondo agrees, confident in his team's potential. Training soon begins, and the new squad members start getting to know each other. Tension surfaces when it's revealed that Jim's ex-girlfriend is Michael's sister. Michael assumes Jim mistreated her, leading to a confrontation between the two. A fight nearly breaks out and has to be stopped by the rest of the team before it escalates. Hondo puts the new team through a series of demanding tests covering areas such as infiltration, armor handling, weapons training, physical fitness, and long-range shooting. Although they struggle at first, the group gradually improves and begins to perform at a solid level. During a sniper training session that uses playing cards as precision targets, the squad shows off their impressive marksmanship. They also practice tactical teamwork by infiltrating empty buildings in simulated hostage rescue exercises, focusing on saving lives rather than risking them. A few days later, it's time for their final assessment, a simulated hostage crisis. The mission is to infiltrate a commercial airplane taken over by terrorists, portrayed by fellow officers armed with paintball guns. The team must neutralize all hijackers and secure the aircraft within 8 minutes. While reviewing the plane's blueprints, Jim spots an unconventional entry point, a narrow elevator shaft designed for food trays. Far too small for any of the men, but not for Chris. The team puts the plan into motion, parking their vehicle under the aircraft and cutting through the floor while another team member climbs to the top to enter through a window. Chris climbs into the tray shaft, while the rest of the team finds a hatch and quickly disarms a trap before it triggers. After a countdown, they launch a coordinated strike. With members attacking from different angles, they swiftly eliminate all 6 hijackers using accurate shots and no friendly casualties. although TJ takes a hit that would have been fatal in a real scenario. Despite this, the mission is a success, and to Fuller's dismay, the team sets a new course record for the exercise. That night, the team heads to a small cafe owned by Deke's father to celebrate. After hours of eating, drinking, and bonding, most of the team goes home, except for Chris and Jim, who go to one of Jim's favorite bars for more drinks. There, they're interrupted by Brian, who trades passive-aggressive remarks with Jim before leaving. As he walks out, Brian breaks a photo on the wall showing him and Jim together. Back inside, Jim tries to make a move on Chris, but she turns him down. Instead, she invites him to her daughter's upcoming birthday party. Meanwhile, Alex meets with a lawyer in hopes of getting out of jail, but she tells him there's nothing she can do. Soon after, he's transferred to another facility. The following day, the team enjoys a well-deserved day off. TJ goes out on a date, Hondo and Velasquez play a round of golf, Deke spends quality time with his kids, Michael stays home with his wife, and Jim attends Chris's daughter's birthday party, where he entertains the children by running around with a water rifle. But everyone's time off is cut short when an emergency call comes in. There's a Polish hostage situation, code for a volatile standoff. A man has barricaded himself inside his home and is firing a shotgun randomly out the window. He claims the house is wired with explosives at every entrance. While most don't believe him, Velasquez refuses to risk it. Jim steps up and suggests using his invention, the key to the city. The team sets it up and uses the giant hook and chain to tear through the back wall of the house. This allows them to enter and subdue the suspect within seconds, bringing the situation to a quick end. Later, over at the sheriff's department, a deputy uncovers critical information about Alex's real identity. That intel is passed to Velasquez, who then contacts Hondo's team and orders them to intercept and escort the prison bus transporting Alex. Meanwhile, Alex's gang has already learned about the transfer. Two of his men disguise themselves as police officers and use a stolen squad car to pull the bus over. They climb aboard, shoot the two deputies guarding it, and free Alex. Just as they're preparing to flee, Hondo's team arrives and blocks off the road. The gang opens fire, prompting a fierce shootout in the middle of the street. Civilians scatter in panic, while Hondo's team quickly neutralizes all the imposters. When Alex attempts to escape in the stolen police car, the officers shoot at the vehicle until it crashes, allowing them to capture him once again. Afterward, it's revealed that Alex is an international fugitive wanted in over a dozen countries for serious crimes: murder, arms dealing, and trafficking. The media jumps on the story. As Alex is escorted to a holding cell, he seizes the opportunity to make a bold announcement in front of the press cameras. He offers $100 million to anyone who can break him out of jail. The news spreads like wildfire across every TV network, confirming that Alex has the financial power to make good on his offer. The announcement attracts the attention of every criminal in Los Angeles. Hondo's team is exasperated, knowing that the situation has just become much more dangerous. They bring Alex to the roof to evacuate him by helicopter. But just as the chopper nears, it is suddenly struck by sniper fire from an unknown location. The helicopter spins out of control and crashes into the street below, erupting in flames. Forced to rethink their plan, the team brings Alex back inside and prepares a new strategy. They'll move him by motorcade. They depart in a caravan of cars and motorcycles, ignoring bystanders and so-called fans vying for Alex's attention. But when a homeless man slowly crosses the road, the motorcade is forced to stop, only to discover its setup. Suddenly, gang members ambush the convoy, launching an all-out assault on the police escort. As a few trucks ram into the police vehicles, the rest of the gang unleashes a barrage of gunfire and smoke grenades. In the chaos, a motorcycle officer is killed, and two others are wounded. But when the attackers reach the target vehicle and open the door, they find only a doll inside. Alex isn't there. It turns out the motorcade was a decoy. The real transport operation is happening underground, where Alex is being quietly moved through a private access tunnel into a set of unmarked cars parked blocks away from the precinct. Velasquez oversees the entire route from a helicopter above. For several miles, the secret convoy moves smoothly, despite Alex constantly taunting them, insulting the officers, and offering bribes to let him go. But just after they pass the second checkpoint, TJ suddenly stops the vehicle and pulls a gun on his own team. He's decided to take Alex's offer. Jim and Michael try to talk TJ down, but they're interrupted when Brian appears and shoots Michael. It's revealed that Brian is the mastermind behind Alex's escape plan. He and TJ cuff Jim to the car, then take Alex and disappear into the subway tunnels. Soon after, the rest of the team arrives, frees Jim, and calls paramedics for Michael. They quickly split up. Hondo and Jim go after Brian and TJ through the subway, while Deke and Chris race ahead to the next train station. Unfortunately, Hondo and Jim miss the departing train, but Deke and Chris report that the train never made it to the next stop, prompting both teams to head to the far end of the tunnel to investigate. They discover the train abandoned midway through the tunnel. Brian and his men are gone. Only frightened passengers remain. The train operator tells them the group escaped through a storm drain. The team follows, entering the sewer system, which causes them to lose contact with the main police radio frequency. Back at HQ, Fuller is informed of TJ's betrayal and Brian's role in the breakout. With the team no longer responding to calls, Fuller grows suspicious that they may be involved in the escape. When he's notified that an unauthorized runway has been activated at Hawthorne Airport, he concludes that's where Brian is headed and dispatches all available units there. Meanwhile, in the tunnels, Hondo's team continues tracking Brian's group while dodging flocks of bats in the dark sewer paths. Brian sets up a booby trap using a claymore mine rigged with smoke grenades. TJ expresses discomfort with the trap, but Brian ignores him. Despite the smoke, Hondo's team presses on. Deke nearly triggers the trap, but Jim stops him just in time. Jim quickly disarms the claymore, allowing the team to continue. Brian's group reaches the tunnel's exit and seals the heavy door behind them before moving on. When Hondo's team catches up, they find the large gate locked tight. Fortunately, Jim still has the claymore, and he uses it to blast the door open. With their radios working again, Hondo contacts Fuller and explains the situation, asking him to send vehicles for pickup. However, Fuller, still distrustful of Hondo, orders the team to abandon the mission. Hondo ignores the command, and the team commandeers a passing limousine. As they take off, Chris spots a low-flying jet overhead, and they quickly realize it must be Brian's real plan to extract Alex, meaning the airport was only a decoy. The team follows the jet as it descends toward the 6th Street Bridge. Brian and his men seize the terrified owners of the plane as hostages and prepare to board. Racing toward the bridge in the limo, Hondo and the team encounter a roadblock rigged to explode. When two of the criminals open fire, Hondo barrels through it without hesitation. As the police open fire on the jet in an attempt to disable it, Hondo crashes the limo into the plane's landing gear just before it can lift off, forcing it to crash. A fierce gunfight breaks out between SWAT and Brian's crew. Chris is hit in the shoulder during the firefight. Alex tries to flee, but Deke chases him down on foot and quickly recaptures him. Meanwhile, Brian escapes the plane using a hostage as cover and rappels down from the bridge. Jim follows in pursuit. Back on the bridge, Hondo finds a wounded TJ who expresses regret for his betrayal and asks about Michael. Hondo tells him that Michael is expected to recover, prompting TJ to draw his weapon and take his own life. Jim, now in the train yard below, is caught off guard when Brian stabs his hand before fleeing again. Jim gives chase through the train yard, dodging between moving cars. He eventually tackles Brian, and they engage in a brutal hand-to-hand fight on the tracks. As a train approaches, Jim kicks Brian's head into its path, killing him instantly. Jim returns to the bridge and reunites with his team. Fuller arrives and commends them for their outstanding work, but reminds them that the mission isn't over. Alex is still in their custody and must be transferred to federal authorities. The team loads Alex into a SWAT truck and completes the delivery. Sometime later, after successfully handing Alex over, a new call comes over the police radio, a robbery in progress. Hondo notes that their shift ended 12 hours ago, but the team, though exhausted, agrees without hesitation to take on the next mission.